Xerix, an Algolian xenobiologist, stepped out of his sleek spacecraft onto the gritty streets of New York City. The year was 2045, and he had traveled across the galaxy to study the most perplexing species known to the Galactic Confederation, humans. Activating his chameleon suit, Xerix blended into the bustling crowd, his amphibious skin shifting to match the vibrant hues of the city. He marveled at the towering skyscrapers that seemed to defy gravity and the cacophony of languages that filled the air. Humanity was a puzzle he was determined to solve. As he turned down a narrow alley, Xerix's acute senses picked up a faint sound amidst the urban din. Curious, he followed it to a makeshift shelter constructed from discarded cardboard boxes and tattered tarps. There, huddled in the shadows, was a young human girl, her wide eyes fixated on a small device in her hands. Xerix watched, fascinated, as the child's fingers danced across the screen, manipulating lines of code with a skill that belied her age. The Algolian had studied human technology extensively, but he had never seen such raw talent in one so young. Lost in thought, Xerix absent-mindedly reached into his pocket and retrieved a small, metallic sphere. It was a nutrient orb, perfectly balanced to provide optimal sustenance for his species. Without thinking, he raised it to his mouth, preparing to consume it. Suddenly, a shrill voice pierced the air. "Don't eat that!" Startled, Xerix turned to see the human child staring directly at him, her device forgotten. She rushed forward, snatching the orb from his grasp with surprising strength. "This isn't food," she said, turning it over in her dirt-streaked hands. "It's a power cell. Eat it and you'll fry your insides." Xerix blinked, his camouflage rippling with shock. In all his years of studying humans, no one had ever been able to see through his disguise. And yet, this small, seemingly insignificant child had done just that. "How did you know?" he asked, his translator automatically converting his words into English. The girl shrugged, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "You think you're the first alien to visit this alley? I've seen things most adults wouldn't believe." She tossed the power cell back to Xerix, who caught it with a tentacle. "I'm Lila," she said, sticking out a grimy hand. "And you are?" "Xerix," the Algolian replied, gingerly shaking her hand with a pseudopod. "I'm a xenobiologist. I study other species like humans." Lila's eyes sparkled with a mix of mischief and intelligence. "Well, Xerix, you're in luck. You just met the best guide in the city. Stick with me, and I'll show you the real New York." As Xerix followed Lila deeper into the alley, he couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter was the start of something extraordinary. Little did he know that the fate of two worlds would soon rest in the hands of this unlikely pair. In the shadows of the towering skyscrapers, an alien scientist and a homeless child forged a bond that would change the course of history. The streets of New York City, long a crucible for the human spirit, were about to witness the strength and resilience of a species that had long been underestimated by the galaxy at large. Xerix, his curiosity piqued, listened intently as Lila began to share her story. Her words painted a picture of a world he had only glimpsed through the lens of his research, a world of struggle, determination, and unbreakable spirit. As night fell over the city that never sleeps, Xerix realized that his mission had taken on a new urgency. He had come to Earth to study humans, but now he understood that he had a responsibility to protect them as well. For in Lila's eyes, he saw the spark of something rare and precious, something that the Galactic Confederation had long forgotten: hope. And as he looked out over the glittering expanse of the city, Xerix knew that he would do whatever it took to keep that hope alive. The story of Xerix and Lila was just beginning, but already, the threads of fate were weaving together, forming a tapestry of courage, friendship, and the unbreakable bonds that would unite two worlds across the stars. In the depths of space, a sinister force stirred, unaware that its plans were about to be challenged by the most unlikely of heroes. But for now, in the quiet of the alley, an alien and a child sat side by side, sharing stories and dreams beneath the infinite expanse of the night sky. As dawn broke over the city, Xerix found himself still in the alley, his mind reeling from the stories Lila had shared. The young girl's experiences, so different from his own, had opened his eyes to a side of humanity he had never encountered in his studies. Lila, for her part, seemed equally fascinated by her new alien companion. She peppered him with questions about his world, his technology, and his reasons for coming to Earth. Xerix, usually guarded with information, found himself opening up to the precocious child. "So, you're here to study us?" Lila asked, her brow furrowed in thought. "Why? What's so special about humans?" Xerix paused, considering his words carefully. "Humans are unique," he said at last. "Your species has achieved so much, despite the challenges you face. You are resilient, adaptable, and creative in ways that many in the Galactic Confederation find both admirable and alarming." Lila nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "We're pretty great," she agreed. "But life isn't easy, especially for people like me." Over the next few days, Lila took Xerix on a tour of her world. She showed him the hidden corners of the city, the places where the forgotten and the marginalized scraped out a living. She introduced him to other homeless children, each with their own unique talents and stories. Xerix was amazed by the ingenuity and resourcefulness of these young humans. They repurposed discarded technology, creating makeshift tools and devices that rivaled those of the Galactic Confederation. They formed tight-knit communities, supporting each other in the face of adversity. Lila, he discovered, was a natural leader among her peers. Despite her youth, she had a keen understanding of the streets and a talent for bringing people together. She taught Xerix the art of blending in, of finding food and shelter in the urban jungle. In return, Xerix shared his knowledge with Lila and her friends. He showed them how to repair and enhance their devices using his advanced understanding of technology. He told them stories of other worlds, of the wonders and dangers that existed beyond Earth's atmosphere. As the days turned into weeks, the unlikely friendship between Xerix and Lila deepened. The Algolian found himself growing increasingly attached to the human child, marveling at her quick wit and unbreakable spirit. But even as he reveled in his newfound connection, Xerix couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. His regular reports to his superiors had been met with an uncharacteristic silence, and he had noticed strange readings on his ship's sensors. One evening, as he and Lila sat atop an abandoned building, watching the sun set over the city, Xerix's communicator buzzed to life. The holographic image of his superior, Commander Zorg, flickered into view, his face twisted in a scowl. "Xerix," Zorg snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your reports have been lacking in substance. What have you learned about the humans? What weaknesses have you discovered?" Xerix hesitated, glancing at Lila. The girl's face had grown serious, her eyes fixed on the hologram. "Commander," Xerix began, choosing his words carefully, "the humans are more complex than we initially believed. Their strength lies in their diversity, their ability to adapt and overcome. I don't believe they have any inherent weaknesses." Zorg's scowl deepened, his eyes narrowing to slits. "You disappoint me, Xerix," he hissed. "I expected more from you. Perhaps I should have sent someone else, someone less prone to sentiment." With a flick of his wrist, Zorg terminated the communication, leaving Xerix staring at empty air. Lila placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression one of concern. "What was that about?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why does he want to know our weaknesses?" Xerix shook his head, a sense of unease settling in his gut. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I fear that Commander Zorg may have plans for Earth, plans that bode ill for your people." In the gathering darkness, the alien and the child sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The bond they had forged, born of curiosity and understanding, now seemed fragile in the face of the looming threat. But as the first stars appeared in the night sky, Lila turned to Xerix, her eyes blazing with determination. "Whatever happens," she said, her voice steady and strong, "we'll face it together. Humans and aliens, side by side." Xerix felt a swell of emotion in his chest, a mix of pride and fear. He knew that the road ahead would be perilous, that the fate of two worlds now hung in the balance. But looking at Lila, her small form radiating an inner strength that defied her size. He felt a flicker of hope. Together, they would stand against the coming storm, a homeless child and an alien scientist, united by the power of friendship and the unbreakable human spirit. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and they would be on the front lines, fighting for the future of both their species. In the depths of the Algolian mothership, Commander Zorg paced the command deck, his angular features cast in the eerie glow of the holographic displays. The reports from Earth, once a source of excitement, now filled him with a growing sense of unease. Xerix, his most trusted scientist, had been sending increasingly positive assessments of the humans, praising their resilience and adaptability. But Zorg saw only weakness, a species ripe for conquest and subjugation. He had hoped that Xerix would uncover the vulnerabilities of the Earthlings, the chinks in their armor that would allow the Algolians to strike swiftly and decisively. Instead, the xenobiologists seemed to have gone native, losing sight of the mission in favor of sentiment. Zorg's thin lips curled into a sneer as he contemplated his next move. He had not risen to the rank of commander by being soft, by allowing empathy to cloud his judgment. The humans, with their primitive technology and fractured societies, posed no real threat to the might of the Algolian Empire. But Xerix's reports had given him pause. The humans, he realized, were more than just a curiosity to be studied. They were a potential obstacle, a species that could prove troublesome if left unchecked. With a flick of his wrist, Zorg summoned his senior officers to the command deck. They assembled quickly, their postures rigid and their expressions blank. "The time has come," Zorg announced, his voice echoing through the cavernous space. "We will initiate the invasion of Earth, effective immediately." The officers nodded, their faces impassive. They had been preparing for this moment, honing their strategies and refining their weapons. The humans, with their pitiful defenses, would stand no chance against the advanced technology of the Algolians. But as Zorg dismissed his officers and turned back to the holographic displays, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Xerix's reports, once a source of irritation, now nagged at the back of his mind. What if the humans were more than they appeared? What if their strength lay not in their technology, but in their spirit, their ability to come together in the face of adversity? Zorg shook his head, banishing the thought. Such notions were the stuff of sentiment, of weakness. The Algolians were a superior species, destined to rule the galaxy. The humans, like so many others before them, would fall. As he watched the preparations for the invasion unfold, Zorg allowed himself a small smile. Soon, the Earth would be his, another jewel in the crown of the Algolian Empire. And Xerix, with his foolish empathy and misplaced loyalty, would be dealt with in due course. Little did Zorg know that his every word, his every movement was being monitored. In a small, forgotten corner of the ship, Xerix crouched, his eyes fixed on a makeshift device cobbled together from scavenged parts. The Algolian scientist had grown suspicious of his superior's intentions, his instincts honed by his time among the humans. Now, as he listened to Zorg's plans for conquest, his worst fears were confirmed. Xerix's heart raced as he contemplated his next move. He knew that he had to warn Lila, to give the humans a chance to prepare for the coming storm. But he also knew that doing so would mean betraying his own kind, turning his back on the empire he had served for so long. In that moment, as the weight of his decision pressed down upon him, Xerix thought of Lila. He thought of her courage, her determination, her unwavering belief in the strength of her people. And he knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, Xerix disconnected the device and slipped out of his hiding place. He had to get to Earth, to find Lila and her friends. Together, they would stand against the might of the Algolian Empire, fighting for the future of both their worlds. As he made his way to the hangar bay, Xerix's mind raced with possibilities. He knew that the odds were stacked against them, that the Algolians were a formidable foe. But he also knew that the humans had a strength that could not be measured in weapons or technology. They had hope, and they had each other. And as Xerix boarded his ship and set a course for Earth, he felt a flicker of that same hope in his own heart. The battle for the future had begun, and he would be there to see it through, no matter the cost. Lila stood atop the tallest building in the city, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of Xerxes' ship. It had been 3 days since the Algolian scientist had left Earth, promising to return with news of the impending invasion. 3 days of waiting, of watching, of hoping against hope that their newfound ally would not be discovered by his own kind. Around her, the city hummed with life, oblivious to the threat that loomed above. Lila's heart ached for her people, for the millions of souls who went about their lives, unaware of the danger that lurked among the stars. But she also felt a fierce pride, a burning determination to protect her world, her home. The humans, for all their flaws and frailties, were a species worth fighting for. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Lila heard a familiar sound. The whir of alien engines, growing louder with each passing second. She turned, her heart leaping in her chest, as Xerxes' ship materialized before her. The Algolian scientist emerged, his expression grim and his movements hurried. "Lila," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We have to act fast. Zorg is planning to invade, to conquer Earth and enslave its people." Lila nodded, her jaw set and her eyes blazing with resolve. "Then we'll stop him," she said, her voice steady and strong. "We'll fight with everything we have." Xerxes looked at her, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. "Lila," he said softly, "the Algolians are a powerful foe. They have technology, weapons, resources beyond anything you can imagine. How can we possibly hope to stand against them?" Lila smiled, a fierce, defiant grin that lit up her face. "We have something they don't," she said. "We have the strength of the human spirit. We have the power to come together, to fight for what we believe in, no matter the odds." With those words, she turned and led Xerxes down into the heart of the city, into the hidden places where her people gathered. Over the next few hours, Lila and Xerxes worked tirelessly, rallying the homeless, the forgotten, the marginalized. They spoke of the threat that loomed above, of the need to stand together, to fight for their world. And to their amazement, the people listened. They came forward, one by one, offering their skills, their knowledge, their courage. There were engineers and hackers, medics and strategists, all united by a common cause. Under Lila's guidance, they began to prepare, to lay traps and fortify defenses. They scavenged for weapons, for technology, for anything that could give them an edge against the Algolian invaders. Xerxes watched in awe as the humans worked, their faces lit with determination and their hands moving with purpose. He had never seen anything like it, never witnessed such unity, such resolve. And as the preparations continued, as the city came alive with the energy of a people fighting for their future, Xerxes felt something stir within him. A sense of belonging, of kinship, of pride in the species he had once viewed as weak and primitive. For he saw now, with startling clarity, that the humans were anything but. They were strong, resilient, and brave beyond measure. They were a people who refused to be broken, who would stand against any foe, no matter the cost. As the sun rose on the final day of preparations, Lila and Xerxes stood together, their eyes fixed on the sky. They knew that the Algolians would come, that the battle for Earth was about to begin. But they also knew that they were ready, that the humans would fight with everything they had, with every ounce of courage and determination in their hearts. And as the first ships appeared on the horizon, as the skies above the city began to fill with the gleaming metal of the Algolian fleet, Lila turned to Xerxes, her eyes shining with a fierce, unyielding light. "Together," she said, her voice ringing out like a clarion call. "We'll face this together, humans and aliens, side by side. And we will win, no matter the cost." Xerxes nodded, his own heart swelling with pride and purpose. For he knew, in that moment, that he had found something worth fighting for, something worth believing in. He had found the strength of the human spirit, and it would carry them through the darkness into the light of a new dawn. As the Algolian ships descended upon the city, their weapons primed and their shields glowing with an eerie light, the humans stood ready. They had prepared as best they could, fortifying their positions and laying traps throughout the urban jungle. Lila and Xerix, the unlikely leaders of this ragtag resistance, stood at the forefront, their faces grim with determination. They knew that the odds were stacked against them, that the Algolians possessed technology far beyond anything the humans could muster. But they also knew that they had something the invaders did not: the strength of the human spirit, the unbreakable bond of unity in the face of adversity. As the first wave of Algolian soldiers touched down, their boots crunching on the rubble-strewn streets, the humans sprang into action. They emerged from their hiding places, wielding makeshift weapons and jury-rigged devices, their faces etched with a fierce, unyielding resolve. The battle was fierce and bloody, the air thick with the sounds of gunfire and the acrid smell of smoke. The Algolians, with their superior firepower and advanced armor, seemed at first to be an unstoppable force. But the humans, guided by Lila's strategic mind and Xerix's knowledge of Algolian technology, fought with a tenacity and ingenuity that caught the invaders off guard. They used the city's winding streets and towering buildings to their advantage, luring the Algolians into carefully laid traps and ambushes. Xerix, his loyalty now firmly with the humans, worked tirelessly to sabotage the Algolian systems, using his insider knowledge to exploit weaknesses and create openings for the resistance. Day after day, the battle raged on, the city transforming into a war-torn landscape of rubble and ruin. The humans, exhausted and battered, refused to yield, drawing strength from each other and from the unbreakable spirit that had carried them through so many trials before. And slowly, against all odds, the tide began to turn. The Algolians, their numbers thinning and their resolve wavering, found themselves pushed back, their advance slowing to a crawl. Lila, her face streaked with dirt and her eyes blazing with a fierce, determined light, rallied her people for one final push. Together, humans and aliens alike, they surged forward, a united front against the invading horde. The fighting was brutal, the casualties mounting on both sides. But the humans, driven by a love for their world and a refusal to submit, fought with a ferocity that stunned the Algolians. In the end, it was Xerix who dealt the decisive blow. Using a device of his own creation, he managed to infiltrate the Algolian mothership, planting a virus that crippled their systems and sent their fleet into disarray. As the invaders retreated, their ships limping back into the sky, the humans let out a cheer that shook the very foundations of the city. They had done it, against all odds and expectations. They had stood against a superior foe and emerged victorious. But even as they celebrated, as they embraced each other and wept tears of joy and relief, Lila and Xerix knew that the battle was far from over. The Algolians, though beaten back, would not give up so easily. They would regroup, rearm, and return, more determined than ever to conquer the earth. But for now, in this moment of triumph, the humans could savor their victory. They had proven, beyond any doubt, the strength and resilience of their species. They had shown that even the most advanced technology was no match for the power of the human spirit. As the sun set over the war-torn city, casting a golden glow over the ruins, Lila and Xerix stood side by side, their hands clasped in a gesture of unity and friendship. "We did it," Lila whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. "We showed them what humans are made of." Xerix nodded, his own eyes glistening with tears. "You showed me," he said softly. "You showed me the true strength of your people. And I will never forget it." Together, alien and human, they looked out over the city, at the people who had fought and bled and triumphed against all odds. And they knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the unbreakable bond of friendship and the indomitable spirit of humanity. In the aftermath of the battle, the city lay in ruins, its buildings shattered, and its streets choked with debris. But amidst the destruction, a new hope had taken root, a sense of unity and purpose that transcended species and origin. Lila, her leadership now undisputed, worked tirelessly to rebuild and heal, marshaling the resources of both humans and sympathetic aliens. Under her guidance, the city began to rise from the ashes, a testament to the resilience and determination of its people. Xerix, his loyalty to the humans now unshakable, served as a bridge between the two worlds. He used his knowledge and influence to forge new alliances, to bring the truth of the Algolian Empire's cruelty to the galactic stage. Together, they traveled to the far reaches of the galaxy, meeting with leaders and diplomats, sharing the story of Earth's triumph against overwhelming odds. And slowly, heart by heart and mind by mind, they began to change the way the universe saw humanity. No longer were humans viewed as a primitive, backward species, ripe for conquest and exploitation. Now, they were seen as equals, as partners in the great cosmic dance of life and progress. And at the center of it all, a symbol of hope and unity, stood Lila and Xerix. The homeless child and the alien scientist, two unlikely friends who had changed the course of history. As the months turned into years, Earth took its place among the stars, a shining beacon of what could be achieved when different species worked together. The Algolian Empire, its cruelty and aggression now laid bare for all to see, crumbled under the weight of galactic condemnation, its leaders brought to justice for their crimes against sentience. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, Lila stood tall and proud, her voice ringing out with the wisdom and compassion of a true leader. She spoke of the challenges that lay ahead, of the work still to be done in building a just and equitable universe. But she also spoke of hope, of the unbreakable spirit that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. And as she looked out over the gathered dignitaries, the representatives of 1,000 worlds, she knew that the future was bright. For the children of Earth, once forgotten and marginalized, now stood at the forefront of a new era. They were the heroes of a new age, the champions of a universe reborn. And at their head, a guiding light in the darkness, stood Lila. The girl who had started with nothing, who had faced the worst the galaxy had to offer and emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than ever. As the applause rang out, as the cheers of a grateful universe washed over her, Lila turned to Xerix, her eyes shining with the light of 1,000 stars. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We changed the world." Xerix, his own heart swelling with pride and love, could only nod. For he knew that she was right, that together they had achieved something truly remarkable. They had shown the universe the true power of friendship, of unity, of the unbreakable human spirit. They had forged a new path, a new destiny for all sentient beings. And as they stood there, hand in hand, alien and human, scientist and leader, they knew that their journey was only beginning. For there were still worlds to explore, still challenges to face, still hearts and minds to change. But they would face them together, armed with the strength of their bond and the knowledge that, no matter the odds, the human spirit would always endure. And so, as the sun set on a universe forever changed, Lila and Xerix looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face whatever lay ahead. For they were the guardians of a new era, the champions of a universe united. And they would never rest until every sentient being, no matter their origin or species, knew the true meaning of friendship, of unity, of peace.